immigrants and Ansars, all totally unarmed, set out on the pilgrimage. The Quraysh, who were still full of animosity towards the Muslims, gathered a large army to prevent them from entering Mecca and maltreated the envoy whom the Prophet had sent to ask permission to visit the holy places. After much difficulty, a treaty was concluded by which it was agreed that all hostilities should cease for 10 years, that anyone coming from the Quraysh to the Prophet without the permission of the guardian of chief should be given back to the idolaters, that any Muslim persons going over to the Meccans should not be surrendered, that any tribe desirous of entering into alliance either with the Quraysh or with the Muslims should be a liberty to do so without deputies, that the Muslims should go back to Medina on the present occasion and stop advancing further, that they should be permitted in the following year to visit Mecca and to remain there for 3 days with the arms they used on journeys, namely their scimitars in sheath. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah thus ended. The Prophet returned with his people to Medina. The Prophet Muhammad dispatches envoys. About this time it was revealed to the Prophet that his mission should be universal. He dispatched several envoys to invite the neighboring sovereigns to Islam. The embassy to the king of Persia, Khosrow Parvis, was received with disdain and contumely. He was haughtily amazed at the boldness of the Mecca fugitives in addressing him on terms of equality. He was so enraged that he tore up into pieces the Prophet's letter of invitation to Islam and dismissed the envoy from his presence with great contempt. When the Prophet received the information on this treatment, he calmly observed, "Thus will the empire of Khosrow be torn to pieces." Thus will the empire of Khosrows will be thus will the empire of Khosrows be torn to pieces. Heraclius submits to Almighty God and embraces Islam. The embassy to Heraclitus, the emperor of the Romans, was received much more politely and reverentially. He treated the ambassador with great respect and sent the Prophet a gracious reply to his message. Another envoy was sent to an Arab prince of the Ghazanite tribe, a Christian feudatory of Heraclius. This prince, instead of receiving the envoy with any respect, cruelly murdered him. This act caused great consternation among the Muslims, who considered it as an outrage of international obligations. Abu Sufyan informed me that Heraclius had sent a messenger to him while he had been accompanying a caravan from Quraysh. They were merchants doing business in Sham, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan. At the time when Allah's messenger had a truce with Abu Sufyan and Quraysh infidels, so Abu Sufyan and his companions went to Heraclius at Elia, Jerusalem. Heraclitus called them in the court, and he had all the senior Roman dignitaries around him. He called for his translator, who, translating Heraclius' question, said to them, Who among you is closely related to that man who claims to be a prophet? Abu Sufyan replied, I am the nearest relative to him amongst the group. Heraclius said, bring him, Abu Sufyan, close to me, and make his companions stand behind him. Abu Sufyan added, Heraclius told his translator to tell my companions that he wanted to put some questions to me regarding that man, the prophet, and if I told a lie, my companions should contradict me. By Allah, had I not been afraid of my companions labeling me a liar, I would not have spoken the truth about the prophet. Abu Sufyan's narration continues. Narration. The first question he asked me about him was, what is his family status among you? I replied, he belongs to a good noble family amongst us. Heraclius further asked, has anybody among you ever claimed the same to be a prophet before him? I replied, no. He said, was anybody amongst his ancestors the king? I replied, no. Heraclius asked, do the nobles or the poor follow him? I replied, it is the poor who follow him. He said, are the followers increasing or decreasing day by day? I replied, they are increasing. He then asked, does anybody amongst those who embrace his religion become displeased and renounce the religion afterwards? I replied, no. Heraclius said, have you ever accused him of telling lies before his claim to be a prophet? I replied, no. Heraclius said, does he break his promises? I replied, no, we are at truce with him, but we do not know what he will do in it. I could not find opportunity to say anything against him except that. Heraclius asked, have you ever had a war with him? I replied, yes. Then he said, what was the outcome of the battle? I replied, sometimes he was victorious and sometimes we. Heraclius said, what does he order you to do?